Welcome to today's workshop. Today's workshop is Wellness at U of T and Preparing for Your First Term. I'm here with Charlotte from Office of the Dean of Students, and I'm also here with Vivian from the Center for Learning Strategy Support. And before we were talking about how crazy it is that it's already August, we are now in our last workshop before you start coming to joining us at the campus. So I'm very excited to meet with you all. I can only imagine how excited you all are. So we are in a little bit of a countdown until things start. So hopefully you've been with us from the beginning, all the way from April, May, when our workshops and our Q&As have started. But if not, that's completely okay. I'm really glad that you're here. Again, my name is Meredith, and I work at the Woodsworth College Registrar's office. I'm one of the academic advisors who are there, and we have a bunch of different advisors that work here. Two of them are here on the call, including Winnie and Natasha. So they both work at Woodsworth College Registrar. So, how today will work. So we'll start with our welcome, our reminders, and then we're going to have a conversation all about generative AI and how that is a learning tool and how to use it within the University of Toronto campus context if you end up using it. So just having that conversation, we'll talk about the university prep micro courses. Then we'll switch to first term tips, like some things to keep in mind for first term. And then we'll switch to wellness at U of T, and we'll have Charlotte join us for that. Throughout, it will be a lot of talking, but throughout there will be some polls that'll show up. So some questions that you might have, just know that we're not keeping track. So maybe there might be a question that you may not necessarily know the answer to it. That's okay. Just take your best guess. Oftentimes it's for reflection or just to have a little bit of fun. So that'll be taking place throughout our session today. If you have questions, what we'll do is we'll hold a Q&A session at the end in the last 15 minutes. So if you have questions, that's awesome. How I view questions is an opportunity for all of us to share what kind of questions we have on our minds. So write them down throughout the presentation, and then we'll make sure that we get to them. So at this point, again, we're in August. There are some summer to-do lists. I'll share with you where to find that we have a summer to-do list and our Welcome to Woodsworth Quirkus shell. In that, we break down some action items to take place each month. And now that we're in August, we have some key ones. So one might be, maybe you might consider participating in Arrive Ready. Maybe you already have. So just a reminder, Arrive Ready is where you can go. And there's often a module that you're assigned to that's coordinated with your academic, with your admission category. So that's a really great way to get an idea of what kind of conversations you might have with your with instructors. You might have a pretty good idea of what how to navigate Quirkus. So it's a really great way to prep for that. And then there's questions and people that you can go to for that. Then there's also the University Prep Micro Course. You might want to consider registering for a few of those. A really big item is reviewing your financial invoice and paying the deferral by August 11th. That's a really key one. So right now it's August 6th, so we're getting really close. If you haven't paid your minimum payment for registration or deferred it, now's a really good time, because if you haven't completed it by August 11th, you may be removed from your course. I don't want to stress anyone out, but that is a really key action item. And then buying your orientation tickets, that's another one. So if you're looking for more information, they're all here within the Welcome to Woodsworth Quirkus shelf. You've already been added to this. If you click on Summer To-Do List, that's where you can find all the action items right here. Some other things to keep in mind is orientation. So orientation is, again, right around the corner. August 31st to September 6th. It's going to be a really fun time. The big thing here is that there's tickets to buy. So if you want to participate in those, the tickets are right here that you can access through them. Not only is there a Woodsworth orientation, but there's orientation events across the campus. That includes transfer student orientation, Black student orientation, accessibility services orientation, career orientation, Indigenous student orientation, orientation for students with family responsibilities, and mature student welcome. So I like to highlight these mostly because orientation is a really great way because that is to meet people during that time, whether it's through the Woodsworth orientation or through the different community orientations. This is a really, like, everyone's in a place where they're looking to meet people. And it's a really great way to find your place on campus and find your home and find your community. So taking those times, if that's I would encourage you to go to any of those. So more details can be found within the Welcome to Woodsworth Quarkus shell. All right, so let's see. Just a little bit of an introduction of the Registrar's office. Just remember, Woodsworth College has two different offices. There's the Office of the Dean of Students and the Registrar's office. And the big difference between the two, I would say, is one is for academics and the other one are more for non-academics. So the Office of the, we'll hear more from Charlotte about the Office of the Dean of Students. And that's where you would go for a lot for orientation, for instance, for a lot of community events, for there's appointments that you can have with wellness. It's a really great place to meet people and to join their events. The registrar office can be a really good place for academic questions. So if you have questions about program enrollment, course enrollment, or your finances or invoices, we can be your first place that you can go to for that. So whether it's for academic or non-academic, I like to highlight these mostly because we're coming to the University of Toronto. You're going to notice it's really big. There's so many different buildings and it can be a little difficult to figure out where to go. But just remember these two offices, we're here, and you can always reach out for any questions that you have. All right. So with that, I'm going to pass it along to Vivian. Vivian is from the Learning Strategy Center for Learning Strategy Support and is a learning strategist, and they're going to talk about generative AI as a learning tool.
Thanks, Meredith. I'm just going to share my screen. And welcome, everyone. It's really cool to hear that you're already on your 7th session. Sounds like a lot of learning has been happening as we go. So I'm very excited to be a part of this and to talk to you all about what it looks like, because I know students are very curious about generative AI, and they talk to us a lot about it when they think of what this means as a learning tool. So thank you, Meredith, for that introduction. My name is Vivian Zhang. I'm a learning strategist with the Center for Learning Strategy Support, and I'll share a little bit more about the service as we go. But we are available to all Woodsworth students. You can book on Folio for a one-on-one appointment. We also have a wealth of different types of programming, which we can get into. Don't want to inundate you with too much information yet, but just know that we're here to support students in any aspect of their learning, whatever that learning looks like. So really figuring out uniquely with you, what are the pieces of your own learning? How do you want to add to that learning and how you may want to deepen the learning? So before we get started, we're going to do a bit of a poll. I'm just going to pull up our poll here. So in terms of poll, perfect. Meredith, did you get that going? Amazing.
Yeah.
Meredith is on the back. She's all set. So in terms of the poll, I'll leave that up for a few seconds. We just want to understand a little bit from you in terms of like how you may or may not be using AI at this time, what you understand about it. So please feel free to vote. Perfect. So let's take a look here. So it looks like for quite a few students, right, when we kind of think about AI, rarely using it, or I've never used it for academic work. So that's great, because then this is a new topic we can talk about, right? I think for some, you might have had some exposure to it. Now, for those who have used it for academic tasks, it looks like the majority is to really try to understand a concept, right? And I think what kind of follows suit is to help support with parts of creating questions to really test with and to be able to support with planning out assignments, right? So I see that there is variety in terms of how you're thinking about AI and what that looks like for your learning. So that's really great. All right. So just to tell you a little bit about what U of T students have been telling us so far when it comes to the use of AI, right? There's a wide range of how students talk to us about this topic. Some are sharing particular ethical and environmental concerns. Some talk to us about their own comfort or discomfort with the technology. They're talking to us about like whether it's okay to use or not, because each course is very different in that way. Right. There's also a lot of discussions around how students think about their use of AI and whether they rely on it or not. So a lot of different emotional pieces come with that too. It's like a kind of a bit of a wild, wild west out there. And so when we think about these concerns that students share with us, and when we think about these concerns in the context of learning, what we've come up with as a model at the Center for Learning Strategy Support is understanding that all of these questions fall under one of these categories. And these three categories that we're thinking of is learning in the world, learning in context, as well as learning in practice. So what does that generally look like for a student? When we think about students and their conception of what it looks like using AI learning in the world, most of these questions are along the lines of what is the impact of using this tool? When we think about what that looks like when it's learning in context, and especially within the U of T context, the questions tend to be what usage of AI tools is actually allowed and permitted, and how am I allowed to use it? But more so deeply, we talk to students about what this looks like when it comes to their GenAI use and how that can really support their learning. Because particularly at the Center for Learning Strategy Support, our work is to help students achieve those particular learning goals that they're trying to get to. And in order to do that, we follow three principles. We're really thinking about helping students build what we would call learning literacy, so that they can understand what does it actually mean when we're talking about really good deep learning. We're thinking about what it means to effectively do that learning. So really focusing on some of those processes that are involved, like experimenting and deepening that learning, retrieval practice. I know they'll just be words for now, but we'll definitely dive into it a bit deeper. Right. And last but not least, really thinking about you as a learner. How do we empower you? How do we think about what it is that you need to really be able to make really smart choices about how you might be using some of these tools, such as GenAI? This is one of the biggest questions that we have when we think about learning, right? And how AI plays into it. We think about learning as, is AI making it kind of easy for me? Or is AI actually supporting me and motivating me to try out some of the hard things that really come with learning? And so when we think about learning and durable learning, meaning that this is long lasting, we kind of think about this on a spectrum of, are we supporting you in developing a skill? Or are these particular tools like AI actually de-skilling or limiting you from being able to develop the skill that you're at the university for and you're trying to achieve? So when we think about ways that it does support with the development skill, it's really thinking about using AI as a way to engage in that metacognition. So I know we had a high percentage of folks who said, hey, by the way, I actually use it to help me test. That is a great way of using the tool and a wonderful way to support your learning. Other ways that we are still building towards a skill is using AI more as like a tutor to help you out and to support you in learning effectively. Where AI maybe kind of de-skills us is when we rely on it too much to interpret things for us or to create products for us. And that's where we might get into a bit more trouble in order to kind of build those skills that we're kind of hoping for in this environment when you're learning. So then what does that look like when we think about it for a student? So let's use this example, right? As a first year life science student, some ways where AI might actually be de-skilling is when you're relying on lecture recordings and you're kind of skipping class. Class is actually really important to participate in, not just to get the content, but it's a way to help you start thinking about the concepts. Another thing is considered a bit more of a de-skilling is that when you tend to get stuck on a problem, in order to get past the problem, we ask for the answer. One thing we would suggest where it can actually help to skill is see if you can break down and pinpoint where you're actually getting stuck. Your instructors have office hours. There's a lot of resources on campus to help you get through particular courses. There's also the UT3 program and also other students, right? These are all different formats of you learning. And so rely on those before you kind of get AI to give you the answer. Because then we actually fall into what we call a fluency illusion, where we believe we know the answer. And a lot of students go take their test and they come back and they say, oh, I didn't remember that at all. This is one of the pieces why we feel like we can get stuck, right? So like I talked about, with AI, sometimes it can feel like I understand the material because it's giving us the answer. But what we're trying to build towards is encouraging more of that durable learning, which can feel actually kind of hard sometimes. So ways we can encourage skill building is really making sure that you just try to solve the problem first. Even if you don't get it 100% correct, that's kind of the point. What you're trying to do is to build towards understanding what is the process and how do I solve for those questions, right? You might want to ask Copilot to help you elaborate on particular questions or identify the specific gaps, because AI is really good about pattern recognition. Right, so it can give you a sense of where it is that maybe you may want to improve a particular skill. And last but not least, you can also have AI generate more questions, but you're the one who's actually solving them, right? So you're taking more of that active role of figuring out what it is that you're trying to make sense of. So a way to think about this then in practice, I know for a lot of students are like, oh, what's the prompt? How do I do it? Right? So if we think about descaling, it is the idea of like just getting AI to summarize the reading. We actually want you to practice and understand the purpose of the summary. And the purpose of the summary, you can actually prompt the AI to say, hey, by the way, ask me more questions. Get me to make sense of what it is that I'm actually reading. Okay. You might ask, where did I make a mistake with this problem? So rather than just asking for the mistake and getting an answer, you'll want to kind of deepen that and have AI support more in the problem solving than just getting to the answer itself. Another thing that we see quite often is just please solve the problem for me or just write it out, right? What we would encourage you to try and do instead is just ask it to help you further that knowing, to get you to think about the topic a little bit more, and to have you identify what might be those possible errors, right? Because that's actually going to help support you. Because when you go into a test, or if you need to go into further courses that have that course requirement previously, right, you're going to develop that process. You're going to know how to solve the problem rather than just having AI do that middle step. Now, this is something that we try out with a lot of students when they come to our AI workshops. Just taking a look at these images that have been generated, one is using ChatGPT and one is using Copilot. What do you notice about each image? And just give it a bit of a thought, right? I also want you to think about what details maybe kind of stand out. And then if you can, think about like, is this a realistic image? Who is it actually representing? Right? So as we ponder that, we try out activities like this because the thing about AI generated output is that it carries with it a lot of inaccuracies and a lot of bias. So what we teach students and what students really think about is then, is this prompt giving me the accurate information that I want to learn from? And is there maybe particular bias? Is it actually giving me, an overall stereotypical idea of what's going on in a generalization? Because if it's doing that, then what we want you to really support yourself with is build more context, right? Understand the context that you're working in. Just like within the U of T environment, there's a particular context. There's a particular way of learning that you're developing. And last but not least, really think about what that looks like, right? At the end of your degree, what you'll probably see you're developing is a form of critical thinking and a level of discernment, which AI is not able to do for you. So really kind of think about this as you're evaluating some of the GenAI outputs that you receive. What is the accuracy of this information? What might be particular biases? What is the context that it's giving me this information in? Hint, hint, you want to think about how you prompt the AI, right? And how can I be discerning? How can I be the person to kind of think through, is this the output that I'm looking for? We really want you to consider this and to interrogate the answers, poke holes in it, because that's going to help you further your own form of thinking, and that's going to help you further your learning. Last but not least, for those students who are still kind of curious about like, what does AI look like for me when it comes to AI and my learning at U of T, we have a ton of different workshops that you can engage with, and it happens throughout the school year. So this is the website that you'll see. We have the actual workshops available to you. And then we also have the GenAI for Learning tips. I'm not sure if that's showing. It is. Okay, perfect. For the tips and resources. So going back to our PowerPoint. Last but not least, some things are food for thought for you to consider if you're even thinking about using AI at all as a learning tool. There are 6 different principles. The first is just be intentional. Really understand what you're going to be using this platform for. Are you going to be using it and are you finding that it helps you develop a skill? Or do you find that AI is maybe removing some of that friction and limiting you from being able to learn how to actually do that skill, right? One thing we talk about quite a lot is like focusing on the process. I know telling U of T students that part can feel challenging because there is an outcome that's being marked. But what we find with students is the students who actually come in and are figuring out that process for themselves, the results come. It's compounded over the years, right? So it might not show up on one test, but as you engage in more of the learning process, you'll find that that shows up as you continue to engage in it. We want you to understand the different limits of AI, right? So really think about the accuracy, the bias, the context, to give yourself an opportunity to think very critically about the outputs that you have. And if you're like, hey, I'm not sure about this, right? This is a great environment to have conversations. You can connect with your instructor, engage in discussion, really formulating those different ways that you can engage in critical conversation. And we want students to use AI responsibly, right? But also acting out of integrity, really making sure that you ask for clarifications, being transparent about any use, and checking your syllabus to see if things are permitted or not, because each course is also a little different. Also within the U of T environment is thinking about intellectual property. So what that means is that instructors, every lecture that they give, every piece of material that they provide to you, that is considered their intellectual property, right? And with a large learning model such as generative AI, that information is actually not meant to be fed there. So what we would say is, if possible, use Copilot, making sure that it's within the gardens of how we're thinking about the use of AI and protecting the privacy of that intellectual property. We want you to make sure that you also check in around your learning, right? We want you to be the human in the loop when you are assessing what's actually going on and practicing if you do decide to practice with AI tools. Last but not least, similar to this workshop today, there's a lot of different supports that are available to you. Right? You have your registrar's office for all the academic needs, so please connect with them if you have academic questions. You also have access to learning strategists. We're available to you. You just have to go on Folio to book an appointment. But we also host a lot of different workshops. And then you also have the other resources to help support you throughout your studies as students through the Dean of Students office, right? So make sure that you connect with all of these different resources because it's going to help you and support you as you travel throughout this journey around your learning. Last but not least, I want to show you the variety of different AI in your learning workshops that will be coming up. Really think about different ways that it supports with your academic success. We have ones just focused on that critical thinking piece with research and brainstorming that we connect with the library around. And last but not least, the aspect of self-testing and practices. So with that, welcome to UFT. This is a reference of all the research we put into to today's workshop. We really appreciate that you're thinking about this and thinking about this intentionally. And I would love to have further discussions around this if you have any questions. So Meredith, I will bring it back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vivian. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about generative AI. The reason I wanted to have the conversation is because I do find students come into the academic advising appointments that we have. Um, and I think I think we all know that generative AI is being used on campus. It is a new tool, but understanding how it is being used and how it can be used appropriately if you want to use it. But I think the thing I really appreciated from your conversation is how learning is a process. It's not necessarily the outcome that we're going towards. Um, Understanding um, when we're building the skill and when we might be relying on AI a little bit too much. So thank you so much. And like Vivian said, like we can keep having the conversations. If you have questions, um, like maybe you're wondering about how to use it, like if you're thinking about it, maybe it's new to you, whether or not it's appropriate, like all those questions are on the table. You can certainly write them down and we can talk about them later on in our presentation. So thank you so much, Vivian. With that, I will transition a little bit to first term tips. So so first up, the one thing I want to note here is just so we talked about the August action items. Now what I want to transition to is a little bit about what action items you can do when classes start. And so Vivian has talked about that course outline. And so that is one thing that I want to highlight right away here. The course outline is, so every course that you take will have a course outline. And in that course outline, there's some really important information about that the instructor creates about your course. So it can include, well, first of all, the instructor's name, TA name, how to get in touch with them, when their office hours take place. There's information about what will take place in each of your courses, what assignments will take place, if there's a midterm, if there's a final exam. Also, there'll be a conversation about AI in that. So some instructors may not allow you to use artificial intelligence, like generative AI at all, while some may allow you to use it within certain confines. And so they will determine that through the course outline. And it is your responsibility to understand how that is, and then also to operate within those guidelines as well. Also within it will be information about how to hand in assignments. And let's say you might get a cold, or maybe you missed a term test. The course outline will outline how you get in touch with your instructor, whether the instructor will allow you to hand in an assignment late, and if they do, what the process will be. So that course outline is really important. And some students, the reason I bring that up is some students don't necessarily know about it until they're looking for that information. But I think it's good to find it right away and get a really good idea of all the information ahead of time. This ties into my second step. So use a calendar to map out your assignments. What I mean by that is your assignments, I think what you'll find is in the first, like courses, the first week, the first, second week, maybe even the third week, things are just starting, you're warming up. You might have a few discussion posts, maybe there'll be an assignment, maybe a quiz. But pretty quickly assignments will take place, and it is really helpful to map out when your assignments are due. So the course outline will have those due dates outlined, and if you put it into a calendar, first you'll be able to highlight really busy times, and then be able to structure your commitments outside of school around that. Maybe you're working, maybe you're part of some social clubs. If you understand when your busy times are through a calendar, you'll be able to help prepare for that, okay? Um, The third one is visit your instructors during office hours. I think this is one thing that a lot of instructors wish students would do more often. And I would challenge, and that's okay. If you're a little uncomfortable, that's completely normal. But I would try to challenge yourself to take advantage of this opportunity. Instructors hold office hours, and that's a time where you can actually go them to ask questions, to get more. Maybe you're not quite sure about a concept that took place during class. Maybe you have a question about the assignment. Maybe there's assignment due in 2 weeks and you want to get started, maybe 3 weeks. But you don't necessarily know where to go. Or maybe you're looking for some action items, or maybe you just need some clarity. Those office hours are really great places. The other thing is maybe you're thinking about grad school. Maybe you're thinking about professional schools after or professional program. Those programs often require an instructor, like a letter or a reference or some kind of based on the relationship you have with instructors. So office hours, not only are they a really good way for you to get the questions and support that you need, but that is also where you can build rapport so that it becomes more natural when you need those questions. It can also come from like experience with research and whatnot. That's not something you necessarily need to think about in your first year. You may not necessarily go to your first year instructor to ask for that. But why not practice visiting your instructors? Why not practice going into those office hours to get an idea of how to talk to your instructors? Remember that they're people, that they're normal people that you can ask questions. The more you practice those skills, the more that it'll become easier. And then you can start building that really genuine rapport, that genuine relationship that comes from instructors. So I would challenge you, if you're a little nervous, maybe bring in a friend along. Another thing that's super helpful is know your academic dates and deadlines. So this might be something that might be a little hard, that you may not necessarily know about right away, and that's okay. So that is in the academic calendar. And so these academic dates and deadlines are super important because the registrar office in the university, we all operate within these deadlines. And so if we go to fall, this outlines things like when courses start. So that is September 8th. When the last day to enroll in F and Y courses. But it's also things like when reading week starts and whatnot. The key academic dates that I think would be helpful to research is when is the last day to drop a course? When is the last day to late withdraw from a course? When is the last day to add credit, no credit notation? Uh, the reason why those are super important is because those are not because you necessarily are plan on dropping a course, but if things don't go according to plan, or maybe you're not getting the grade that you necessarily expect, or maybe you're just wanting to look at different options, those are dates that are really key to do a quick check-in. So maybe a week or two before the drop deadline, maybe you book an appointment with an academic advisor. If you get a grade that you weren't expecting and you want to discuss it, you certainly can talk to your instructor about that. But if you're just trying to figure out whether or not this impacts program plans or whatnot, those academic dates and deadlines can be helpful in understanding what options are available to you. And the last thing, this is not even an exhausted list. In fact, there is a QR code that leads to a first year checklist that I will share with you in a moment. But another thing that I super think is helpful is the registered study group. Not all courses have this, but a lot do, especially a lot of the big ones. And so those are really great opportunities to meet people, first of all. They're usually led by an upper year student. And so this is a place where you can go meet with people in your class, study, you're all learning the same material. You can prepare for midterms together. It's a really good study resource, first of all, but then also it's really good just as a bonding. It's if you're in a really tough course and you just experience a really tough midterm and you're trying to maybe get a higher grade on the second one, joining those study groups is a really great way to understand that everyone's kind of going through it the same. You're not alone in it, but also it's a really great way to learn from each other, to teach each other certain concepts. And yeah, I think there's really great resources within it as well. So the first year checklist that I have, this is within the Welcome to Woodsworth. There is things in September, what campus resources are available, what community and student life. October, November, and all the way through. So if you're interested in those, it can be super helpful in understanding like what things to keep in mind. All right. The other thing that I think is really helpful during this time is the mindset that you have. I find when I talk to students, and I think a lot of academic advisors and probably learning strategists and other people as well, we're the mindset of growth is really important. I do find this idea of perfectionism can be quite, might have worked in other, like some of us may connect with the idea of being a perfectionist. And those habits that come from perfectionism might have benefited or worked with in high school or maybe a different learning environment. But within the university environment, just know that it is normal for there to be a learning curve, and some of the study habits that have worked in the past may not necessarily work here. So, in the same way that Vivian talked about learning being a process, where you might stumble a bit at the beginning, trying to understand how to learn within this. Those students who really understand the process of learning, who recognize the benefits that come from a little bit of struggle, they are the ones that tend to see their grades increase in their second, their third, and fourth year. And then not only are they seeing the outcomes that they want, but they're also learning the skills that come along with it. So try not to aim for perfectionism at this point in time, but rather think about learning as growth. The other thing is, I find a lot of students, and this may or may not be true for you, if you're someone who is really comfortable with asking for help, I think that's wonderful. In fact, I try to encourage that because I find the students who there is kind of a stigma around asking for help sometimes, not just with students, but kind of with everyone, right? It can be seen as a weakness. And so what I would challenge you or ask you is try to reframe how you think about asking for help. Remember that the strongest students are the ones that recognize that there might be a gap in learning and act on it. They remember that there are learning strategists to reach out with. There's Office of the Dean of Students for that community aspect. There is academic advisors available here. There's lots of different resources here on campus. And so even if you're not too sure necessarily who to go to, I think that's probably the hardest point, but that's something that you can reach out to academic advisors and we can help you make that connection. But remember that there is that asking for help is a really good first step. And lastly, remember engaging in campus and social life. So we are here for academics. That is a really key part of why we're here. But beyond that, our health is most important, and that includes both mental and physical health. So taking care of our sleep, making sure that we eat, making sure that we take time to talk to people, that we make time for that social aspect, because a lot of great things do come from that social aspect of being. There's so many great opportunities. Like there's some really great campus um, clubs on campus. There's really great experiential learning that aren't necessarily always connected to getting a credit or getting a specific grade, but those are the ones where you're building social skills. Maybe you're building leadership skills. Maybe you're building network, or maybe you're just having fun. And that is really important too. So, of course, that is all within there. There may not always be time for all of it all at once, but knowing that all those are important and knowing when we can make time for it is super important. But that social aspect is super important. Okay, so I did a bit of a spiel there. Now what I want to do is take a moment to do a little bit of a quiz. So this is know who to reach out to. Who do we reach out to? Okay. So the first one, thank you, Natasha. So who do we reach out for clarifying course materials and discussion of term work? So a lot of you included instructor, and the answer for that, you're right, it is the instructor. So remember, this is a place, this is the instructors, they have their office hours. This is a really good place where you can go. There's TAs as well. Those are teaching assistants. They're course materials. And so you can have that kind of question if you're not too sure necessarily how to complete term work. And remember that conversation, if you're not able to hand things in on time, that first conversation goes through the instructor. Okay, great. We can move on. Thank you. Okay, so our second one. Who do you reach out to for help with time management, managing distractions, exam preparation, and learning strategies? So, again, academic advisor, instructor, math center, writing center, learning strategist, and library services. A lot of you have chosen the learning strategist. So, because Vivian is here, I do want to give the opportunity. So, learning strategists are a really great great resource on campus that's available to you. Vivian, if you can take a moment just to explain, so students can meet with you one-on-one. What would that appointment look like? Why would students necessarily reach out to you? Like, when do you think is a good time for students to make that appointment?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, in terms of a learning strategy appointment, what it looks like is we like to have students maybe have some sense of what maybe feels like a barrier to their learning, right? So, what that means for a lot of incoming students, it is giving yourself an opportunity to practice with some of the material first or start to see for yourself, like, where do I keep getting stuck? Right? If it's material based kind of content work, the first question before is great. Reach out to your instructor because they actually have the knowledge, right? And this is where we think about AI too. I know for a lot of students are like, oh, I could just go to AI. But we want to think about that context. Your instructor knows specifically what you actually need to know up until that point in your course, right? We have so many students coming in, they're like, I've never learned these things. This is what AI told me. Well, because it's like actually outside of your scope. You don't need to know all of those things, right? You'll learn it eventually, but within that context, really connecting with your instructor. And that one-on-one appointment with a learning strategist basically looks like us understanding a bit more what feels like the things that you're struggling with when it comes to your learning. So it could be what is listed here. It could be time management. For a lot of students, they might say it's procrastination or it's my motivation. I don't actually know where to get started. For some students, they're just like, I don't know what I don't know. And so we can always start there, right? It's a great opportunity to start to make sense of what's actually happening for your learning process. Alongside us as learning strategists, we also have peer mentors, and peer mentors also do one-on-one appointments. And they're really great because these are actually students and their undergrad and graduate programs at U of T who have used some of these strategies to help support with their work. Right. So outside of the learning strategy appointments that are one-on-one, you also have access to peer mentor appointments. And to add on to that, as I was kind of noting before too, we have a lot of different workshops and programming, right? So outside of all those workshops for AI in your learning, we have an upcoming workshop. It's actually a series. It is called University Prep. It is a series course, meaning there's 3 sessions. It's happening starting August 18th in the evening. And during this time, in those 3 consecutive sessions, we're going to be talking about what does it mean to be studying, what does it mean to be planning, and how can I stay motivated? Because these are the biggest areas that students come to us with. And we also have our peer mentors there, and they will be sharing more of their practical strategies on how they facilitate that with their learning and on the ground. So we really look forward to having you join us for university prep as well. And there's a whole slew of other resources you can explore, but I would say this is where we want to start, right? Also, don't inundate yourself with way too much stuff. I know for a lot of incoming students, they get pretty overwhelmed by having to do all the things. But just like with learning, it's a process. Pick a few things, try it out, right? And then sort of see for yourself, did it work? Did it not work? And then pick a few other things. I hope that explained the process, Meredith.
That's amazing. Thank you, Vivian. Yeah, but I think that's really helpful. Thank you so much. Especially like I think one question that I even have is knowing when to reach out to instructors versus learning strategists. And so I really appreciate you explaining that going to the instructor for context, for content, that is super helpful. So thank you. All right, so I think we have a few more. So who do we reach out to for improving writing skills to boost your GPA? Okay, you got it all, 100%. So the reason why I framed it this way is because I feel that a lot of students think about the Writing Center as a place that you might go to when when you're not a good writer, or when you're in the thick of it and you're learning how to build that. Just remember that the Writing Center is a place where a lot of students with high grades go. Students who might be getting 70s, 80s, 90s, all those students are still utilizing the writing skills. So the reason why I think it's really connected to GPA is because one thing you might notice is that a lot of the assignments that take place in certain courses will be essay based. So there's midterms, there's final exams, and there's a lot of courses that are that run more towards in that way, but there are a lot of writing. There can be a lot of writing. And so a really key way to make sure you increase your grades is making sure that when you're writing, you get your ideas across, because those ideas are what's going to ensure that yeah, that meet the assignments. And so writing skills can be really big, largely connected to your grades. So remember that the writing skill is not the writing center. We have one at Woodsworth College. Just remember that's not a place where you just go to if you're getting poor grades, that can, or grades that you're not expecting. But it can be there and when you're getting the high grades as well. They're there for everyone. And there's different kinds of contexts. There's writing within an arts-based course, maybe within philosophy versus an English course versus a research report versus a science report, like there's all, or resume writing. All of those have different writing skills. And so that might be a very different skill set than what you're used to. So I just want to remind you, oh, I guess I should share the answer. It is the writing center. Okay. So our next one, who do you reach out for with math challenges? So just a reminder that the Math Center, that we have at Woodsworth College. I'll share what I'll do is I'll go to Woodsworth College Writing Center. We have different academic supports, and that includes the Academic Writing Center, but also our Math Learning Center. So right now, they still have hours for the 2025 and 2026. But if you want to get answers for maybe you want that one-on-one help when it comes to learning math, this is a place where you can go to. Again, you do have your instructor in TA. I think that might be more appropriate if there is like a certain concept in class that you don't necessarily know. But if you're looking for support when it comes, maybe you notice a large gap and you're looking for one-on-one attention that might take a little bit more time, then the Math Learning Center would be a really good resource for that. All right, we'll return back to our questions. Okay, who do you reach out to for help with citing sources and finding research materials? It is library services. Now, the reason why I like to talk about library services is one, first of all, we have such a really good resource here at the University of Toronto. It's one of the largest libraries in North America. But it can be a little bit overwhelming. This might be one of our maybe this might be a place where the first time where we're operating, we're researching within a certain library database where we're looking for specific articles, we're trying to find specific research. It can be a little overwhelming to find really good sources. One thing I do want to remind you is that we have librarians that can help. Not only are there workshops and they lead really great service, but you can actually ask for a consultation. So if you ever need assistance with finding resources, the library service can be really helpful that way. Okay. And our last question, for who do you reach out to for course planning and support when your academic plans need adjusting? So yes, this is an academic advising. So these are things where, yeah, for any questions that you have, like it can be about course enrollment, it can be about program enrollment, but it can even be, let's say you're in a certain situation where maybe you get into a place where maybe you're behind in a few assignments and you don't necessarily know who to go to. I think a really key skill or a really good habit is try to hand in your assignments in on time, but life does happen. Sometimes we get sick or maybe something like a personal circumstance happens. And that can impact our courses and it can impact our programs, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to impact our academics as a whole. It's just that we need to figure out what our options are. And so for those kind of things, just know that academic advisors, we're here to help you. We don't have any judgment when it comes to that. We are here, we just want to let you know and educate you on all the different options that are available to you so that you can make the choice that best benefits you in that specific time. Okay. Now, I think we're at a point. Oh, the other thing I want to remind you of is another toolbox. So, yeah, there is so much information, and know that you don't necessarily need to remember all of it all at once. This is something you can just mark down and come back to, or you can read through now if you want to, but there is a hidden curriculum toolbox. And I think this can be super helpful because it outlines different things like the writing center or instructor office hours, that transition from high school to university writing. There's some really great resources here to explain what those key differences are when it comes to essay structure or the thesis statement or presentations. How to go about community mentorship and networks, critical thinking, well-being and balance, all of those can be super helpful. So just remember there's other resources. You certainly can interact with them now, but this is something that you can turn to throughout your first year as well. Okay. Without further ado, now I'd like to introduce you to Charlotte. So Charlotte is a coordinator within Student Success and Transitions at the Office of the Dean of Students. And I'll pass it along to her.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be here today and to virtually meet all of you. I'm going to be sharing my screen here. So just give me a second while I pull this up. Here we are. So, as Meredith mentioned, my name is Charlotte. We all have very long job titles here. Mine is I'm the coordinator for student success and transitions. And essentially, my role is to help you get in, through, and out of university, whatever that might look like. But I'm actually here to talk about wellness. And wellness is a word that you'll probably hear quite a lot, and it can mean a lot of different things. Basically, the point of the next 20 minutes or so is going to be how Woodsworth can support your wellness, how you can support your wellness, and what resources are available for you to make sure that you're thriving at U of T. Here we are. So I work in the department called the Office of the Dean of Students. And like Meredith mentioned, we work, there's the Registrar's office, which looks at all kind of the registration aspect of your academic life, things like course selection, planning, anything academic. Whereas the Office of the Dean of Students, we support all of the non-academic aspects of your student experience. So you can thrive kind of holistically. We work specifically to support student groups on campus. You might have heard of WICSA, which is our student council. We also run the Woodsworth residence, although you don't need to be a resident student to access our services. Basically, we're just here to help you in all the non-academic parts of your career here at U of T. We have a couple of different staff members. I'll highlight a few of them. First is Lisa up here. She's our Dean of Students. And you'll be seeing her around all sorts of campus events. I'm sure you'll get to meet her at orientation. She runs this whole show. She runs the whole department, and her real priority is making sure you're having a good time and you're feeling supported at university. This is me over here, but I'm actually here speaking for Amanda. Amanda is enjoying some well-deserved time off before the school year kicks in. And so Amanda is our Assistant Dean for Wellness and Community Engagement, and wellness is her whole thing. To give you a bit of a background on Amanda, she is completed a Master's of Social Work and has a background in social work, counseling, that kind of psychology aspect of how people grow and learn. And so she's basically anything to do with how you are feeling your wellness at university. That's her business. She's here to support that. So when we talk about wellness, This can mean a bunch of different things. A lot of people might think of your internal wellness, right? Mental health. So there's mental wellness, right? Feeling balanced, connected to others, ready to meet life's challenges. There's also the emotional wellness, right? Being kind to yourself. You're learning a lot as a university student, and you're going to make mistakes. We all will. So you're going to experience all sorts of emotions as you go through. And wellness is really personal to the individual. It can be internal, it can also be external, and it's very, very personal and it can change a lot as well. So, what our goal is to help you understand what wellness means for you and how you can support your own wellness. You'll hear Amanda talk a lot if you attend any of her workshops. You'll hear her talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness. Sometimes she'll put it in a wheel called the wellness wheel. And this is just her way of, again, sharing, right? Wellness looks really different for every different person, and it's a bunch of different factors. So, this is kind of how she lays it out. You might think, okay, right, I'm supporting my intellectual wellness, my occupational wellness in terms of going to university, embarking on this degree path, learning a lot more. But there are all sorts of other aspects that might fall through the cracks if you're not too careful. Things like spiritual wellness. If you're removed from maybe you are someone who goes to church or to a mosque and you're no longer able to access that, how can we get you connected with somewhere similar in the city of Toronto? Financial, school is expensive. It's no secret. How are we going to manage your budget? How can we talk about financial wellness so that you're not worried about money and you're able to balance all of life's different expenses? Social, physical, emotional, environmental, even. All of these are things that we can help you out with at the Office of the Dean of Students to make sure that all of these elements are taken care of. There are so many ways to do that. It can be really overwhelming, just so much to do at U of T. I'll point out a couple of different ones. A lot of people like to start with group activities, and it's something that I really recommend as well. The Office of the Dean of Students, we host a lot of events throughout the school year, and Amanda specifically hosts a lot of them that will be wellness forward. I'll talk a little bit about what those are in a second. There are also clubs and student groups, like we mentioned, in terms of registered study groups. It can be really helpful to have people who are going through similar things and who have similar lived experiences to you around you. Say you're in a difficult class and you want to commiserate with your peers. That's a really great, very cathartic way to get through the school year. Alternatively, we have so many clubs that are related to interests or faith or nationality or, passions and interests in charity work, subjects. Truly, I think there are hundreds and hundreds of clubs at the University of Toronto. Anything under the sun. I think I was talking to someone who was part of a bread enthusiast club where they just like to eat bread and talk about how much they like to eat bread. Anything under the sun, we gotcha. We can find people who have like-minded thoughts and get you some friends in there. Also, again, academic FLCs, sometimes called FLICs, registered study groups, other ways to get connected with your peers. This is a really good intro, but sometimes we find students are really struggling and they want to kind of connect with someone individually about their wellness. Again, lots of different options here, and I always recommend students start with a one-on-one meeting with Amanda, and she can then connect you with all of the different services to help you get where you need to go. All of our offices, and I think this is the same for the entirety of U of T, we have an open door policy. When in doubt, just stop by. If you find yourself at the registrar's office, if you find yourself at the Office of the Dean of Students, wherever it is, ask the closest staff member and we will get you to where you need to go. Especially at Woodsworth, we're a very tight-knit college. We know everyone, and so ask one person, we'll send you to the right way. We want to get you the answers and the support that you need. So I'll specifically highlight Amanda here because I think it's a great place for people to go if they aren't sure where to start. Amanda, like I mentioned, her whole thing is supporting student wellness. And she can help you connect with a range of different health services to support your physical health, your mental health, even financial health, regardless of what it might be, to help you achieve your personal goals. Amanda meets individually with students as well as running those programs, and you can always book an appointment with her, be it in person at the Office of the Dean of Students or virtually. I think that it's really important to know that nothing is too big or too small when it comes to reaching out for help. We, like was mentioned, we see a lot of different concerns. We see things, from can you help me find a club that I want to join, to concerns about suicidality and self-harm. The spectrum is so large and we're here to help you through it all. I never want you to feel like there is a problem that's too big or a problem that's too small. That's literally our job. That's what we're here for. Most commonly, we see students coming in, maybe in first year, they've experienced a bit of a drop in their grades and they're feeling really not great about that. It's a really common concern for students to, maybe you were getting 80s and 90s in high school, now you're more in the 60s and 70s range. You have a lot of emotions about that. We can chat about it. Maybe you started in a field, you were like, I'm going to do biology. I love biology. You get to university, you're like, oh no, that's not for me. You have a lot of emotions again about like, maybe I don't want to talk to my parents about that, or I'm kind of nervous about what this means for my future. We can help out. Similar to, I don't know how to make friends, or I feel really nervous about going to office hours, or I feel really guilty if I take a break. Or I've been eating like really terrible. I've been eating ramen for days and days, and I really need some vegetables, but I don't really know how to navigate that. We can help you through it all. Truly, nothing is too big or too small. We've seen it. Like I mentioned again, Amanda has a really great background in mental health support, very, very caring and very understanding. If you're a bit too nervous to meet individually, something I like to encourage students to do is come to our events. You'll meet staff members at our events. You'll also meet fellow students, and it's a great way to kind of test the waters and see what we're all about before you come and book an appointment with us. We have so many wellness programs available. I'll highlight a couple of fan favorites. On the left here, we have Pause Your Stress. This is where we bring in some therapy dogs from our fantastic partners at One Health. They are so, so, so sweet. We had therapy cats at one of our sessions. I didn't know they did that. So fantastic. Come and hang out with the pets. So good. We'll also talk about, again, right, ways to de-stress. Something we'll do every September is Spicy Bingo. So talking about sexual health and sexual wellness. We'll do some giveaways. That's always a really fun one. Similar with The Price is Right. So we do financial wellness. Again, right? How are we budgeting? How are we supporting, your finances while you're paying for university and housing and all of that? As well as we do a lot of cooking workshops, and those are great because even if it's a cooking workshop or not a cooking workshop, we usually have free food at these events. So if nothing else, come for the snacks and stay for the wellness. So I think again, you'll hear us say it a million times over, get involved. Getting involved is so important. But hear it from some students. Something that I do in my personal portfolio is I run our mentorship program. We have a team of, I think it was 65 e-mentors this summer. And at the start of the summer, I sent out a little questionnaire. I was like, what is the top piece of advice that you would give to our incoming students? It could be literally anything. It's your top piece of advice. And 73% said that you need to balance schoolwork with your social life. They said it's so important to make sure that you're making time to socialize and to talk to people. You're not just isolating yourself, and you're finding a good balance there. Similarly, 60% of our mentors said, you need to get involved, be it at the university, be it in community. You have to have something to balance the schoolwork, to give your brain a bit of a rest from all of the deep learning that you're doing. Give your neurons some time to connect, chat with people, right? And in talking to all of our e-mentors, it's something that they really struggled with in first year, right? You think, oh, I'm at school, I need to study all the time, I need to maximize all of this. But in fact, most of our successful students are the ones who really enjoy the balance in their life and are able to recognize when they need a break from one thing or another. I like this quote from our e-mentor, Sophie. She says, do it alone and do it scared. Again, U of T is super intimidating. It is a huge campus. We get it. Start by going to an event. You might be really nervous. That's okay. There are therapy dogs there. That's their whole thing, or, go and introduce yourself to a classmate. It's okay to make a fool of yourself sometimes. It's okay to do something that you were like, oh, I should have gone about it a different way. You learn by doing, and you learn by putting yourself out of your comfort zone. So do it alone, do it scared. People will find you. It's going to be okay. And of course, because it's U of T, we do need to incentivize you guys academically to get involved. Something that we like to do for people who attend our workshops regularly is a co-curricular record seal. Basically, this is a stamp. It goes on your official U of T documents. That's basically like you participated and you were really involved in campus life. And this can be through a bunch of different things. Amanda specifically is bringing back the self-care certificate. This is if you attend a certain number of her wellness workshops throughout the years, you get a stamp on your U of T record saying, you were involved at Woodsworth, you attended these, and you are now an expert in self-care. We also have other ways to get involved, of course, being the mentorship program, Dean's Ambassadors, Access Mentorship if you are an Access student, lots of different ways to get a CCR record. It's just another little incentive as to trick you into getting your mental health in order there. So again, you can meet with Amanda, but I do know that a lot of students might be a bit wary of, meeting with someone within your college, especially if you're talking about academic things. You might be a little nervous. You shouldn't be, but that's okay. We want to meet you where you're at. So you can either go directly to Health and Wellness, or Amanda can connect you. Regardless, if you feel like you do need a bit more support, you would benefit from counseling or therapy regarding mental health, we do offer that. We actually have an on-location counselor who works specifically for us at Woodsworth College. You can book an appointment with them and take your appointment right here at Woodsworth, or of course connect to our other counselors at Health and Wellness. But they, again, can talk to you about anything under the sun, trained in all aspects of mental health. We see a lot of things like body image issues, eating disorders, nutrition, self-esteem, relationship and family issues, anxiety and depression. Seasonal depression is a big one too, especially for students who aren't used to our cold climate here. Again, suicidality and self-harm. Anything under the sun, we can help you out with. So Amanda can help you book an appointment. You can also call yourself once you're here, and they do same day or next day counseling. So again, if you're like, I really need to talk to someone right now, we have that. We can get you sorted. And I'll also shout out our healthcare coverage. Again, not just mental health, but also physical health, dental coverage, vision, travel insurance. As a U of T student, you receive coverage under the UTSU Student Care Network. It's going to be a little bit different for domestic versus international students, but regardless, you do have health insurance as a U of T student. And your coverage begins September 1st. Of course, unless you are opting out to use a private insurance through maybe parents or family members. But September 1st, you have access to so many things. Guys, go to the dentist, get your eyes checked, take advantage of this, truly maximize all of these benefits, take advantage of this coverage. I believe there's also coverage for counseling as well, if you are looking to get more kind of continued counseling there. If you need glasses, now's the time, Really, I really encourage all of you to take advantage of this coverage, and Amanda can help you navigate that too. I'll just point out as well, insurance with the University of Toronto for the first 2 months. So in September and October, there's what's called a blackout period. Basically, this just means you can't submit any claims until things kick off in November. But once November starts, you are then able to retroactively claim healthcare that you received in September and October. So save those receipts, but just be mindful that you won't be able to be reimbursed until November. After November, you could submit right away, no problem. Please take advantage of your healthcare. It's really great. All this to say, we really just want to encourage you that, if you're struggling with literally anything, there's always support out there. First step is intimidating, like our student here says, but people are more than willing to help. And it's so true. We want to help you. It is our job to help you. That's our whole thing, is getting you to where you need to be. There's no right or wrong. You can always ask literally anyone and we'll get you to the right person. The first step is the hardest. It's always reaching out that's the hardest, but once you do that, I promise you, we are here and we can support you. So if you want to learn more, again, I'm speaking on behalf of Amanda here, but you can connect with Amanda through email. It's woodsworthwellness@utoronto.ca. Very easy to remember. Or come visit us. We work out of the Woodsworth Residence Building. We're on the first floor. You'll see me at the front desk, so come on in and say hi. Again, I have snacks at my desk, so come and take one. You can also keep up to date with us on social media. This is where we'll share all of our events and our programs, so you know when the therapy dogs are coming. And we'll also be sharing our events via the newsletter once you are enrolled. So all this to say, we hope that you are well, and if you need support with your wellness, we are always here to help out. So feel free to ask some questions. I'll throw it back to Meredith. I believe we're on a Q&A portion now.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Yes. I think one thing I do want to note, I'm going to share a screen where everyone can find their Q&A, but one thing I do want to highlight, you might notice the conversations that might be happening between the Office of the Registrar versus Dean of Students versus a learning strategist, like a lot of I hope you like something that might become apparent is that learning when we bring ourselves to university, when we are learning, the pieces of ourselves overlap. So that emotional part, that spiritual part, the physical health, mental health part, the social part, all of those interact. So if you don't necessarily know who to have these conversations with, know that the concerns that you might bring to the office of the dean of students can also be brought forward to an academic advisor. We may not necessarily be able to get into the support that it is, but if let's say you might have some struggles just because we're more academic focused, and we'll probably the action items that we will discuss will be more academic and within the academic realm. Those kind of conversations can certainly happen because we kind of view learning as a holistic aspect. But we just may point you, like we might encourage you to make that appointment with Office of the Dean of Students after with Amanda, or to coordinate with, or maybe with learning strategists. But they kind of all interact. So if you don't necessarily know who to go to, you can just take a guess, and we'll always point you in the right direction. Okay. Okay. So with that, I'm sure some of you do have some questions. This is at the point where you can, I do have a few more things that I want to talk about just to wrap up, but while we're doing that, you certainly can submit questions, and to find that you might need to do a little bit of a hunt in Zoom. So to do that, you click the three dots above more, and then you should be able to find Q&A. We do have Winnie available to answer those questions by chat, but then if there's some specific questions for Charlotte or for Vivian, I'll voice them to the whole group. Now, I also want to highlight our mentorship program. So I'll let Charlotte talk a little about this, okay?
I'm back. Like I mentioned, mentorship is one of the aspects of my portfolio that I run. We have a fabulous team of 65 upper year mentors. These are upper year students who are volunteering their time to help you out and to get you acclimatized to U of T. And they would love to meet you, and they'd love to chat. You might have noticed that there are a bunch of emails in your inbox once every week from a mentor who's been assigned to you, and these cover things from course selection to getting involved. This mentor would love to hear from you. You're always welcome to reach out to them and connect one-on-one. They can chat about any of your concerns, be it, I'm taking MAT 135. What do you think about it? To, what laptop do you use for school? Or like, how do you organize your notes? Mentors are there, and they would love to chat. We also have a couple of upcoming events, again, for you to meet fellow students and meet upper year students. Check your emails. You can also follow us on Instagram for those events. We would love to meet you, and we would love to have you.
All right. This is not a fun conversation to have, but it is about scam emails. And since the deadline to pay your minimum payment for registration and deferral, this is a time where you might receive a scam email. I just want to, we do like to be a little transparent about that, because every once in a while it does happen where students may receive an email that looks quite official. It looks like it's from the University of Toronto, but you should be just very aware of the fact that one, the U of T will never ask for payment via an e-transfer. So if there's ever a situation where you're pressured to act immediately, maybe you're asked for money, passwords, or personal email, and it's asked to be done very quickly, just be aware of like how you're feeling when you're reading that. If you're feeling very activated, or maybe you're feeling pressured, then question whether or not this seems like a real email. And if you're never quite sure, maybe it's around the payment deadline and you are a little bit nervous, that's a conversation you can reach out to us, and we can have that conversation with you. But the big thing is that if it's a large amount of money and they're asking for that, don't interact with it. It's best to just double check, either report it or forward the email to the email listed. The other thing I want to note is our Academic Writing Center at Woodsworth College is leading a Jumpstart Academic Skills Seminar. This is going to be taking place in September. So maybe, so the topics that will be included are survival skills, critical thinking, academic integrity. If maybe you're not sure necessarily where your writing is from at, and you're just looking to explore more, this would be a really great option. So there is a QR code here that you can certainly register with, but more questions, more information will come through the newsletter and what. So keep an eye out for that as well. All right, so that now we've gotten to the end of our thing. So if you have, we'll transition to our Q&A. Before I forget, I do want to do a quick shout out to Charlotte, to Vivian, to Winnie, and to Natasha. I tend to forget the thank yous, but really I appreciate that everyone has been able to talk, and really appreciate you being here. So